The Roman Empire is one of the greatest things that man has ever created in its history. Well, this empire gave us a lot of very modern things, such as the road, toilets, and of course, the gladiator matches. Now, I want to focus a little bit on that gladiator matches because this is one of the greatest culminations of anything manly that has ever been. Okay, because the gladiator matches combines warfare, theater, and sports all in the same package. Everything that men throughout history had loved. And suffice to say, it's entertaining. I mean, can you imagine LeBron James being a gladiator? I could imagine it right now, him flopping his way into a downvote, and then he's going to be dragged by the chariots and fed to the lions mercilessly. Um, a very, very entertaining prospect indeed. But that's just a sample size of what the Roman Empire has brought to mankind. They also brought Roman numerals, something that you always see in watches. And the Decima Gatekeeper is no different. In fact, they are prominently emphasizing this watch design, the Roman numerals on their dials. And even Decima, who is actually based to a Roman god, is their brand name. And they're very proud of this watch design. However, like all empires in the world, there are certain flaws that may be the downfall of this brand. But that may be hyperbole, of course, because um, design, beauty, and appreciation is all very subjective. But in my personal point of view, there could have been a lot of great things that they could have modified a little bit to make this not just a good design, but a lasting design that could last the ages. Something that Roman Empire esque um, design is worthy of. Decima, the Roman goddess of fate, is one of the Parcae, the three goddesses controlling human destiny. Decima's role in measuring life's allotted time signifies its centrality in determining a person's lifespan. This is where this brand took its moniker, which is somewhat time related, but more really to connect the timepiece to its Roman Empire roots. It's a novel idea, but I feel that at first glance it has very little impact on the watch, aside from the few hints on the dial. That's not to say that this watch is incoherent or a weird fusion of incomprehensible things, like, my Uncle Marco, the toothless, who also happens to have a dentistry practice. Definitely not Uncle Marco. However, if you examine the watch itself, it's actually a visually appealing interpretation of a conventional watch design. The Miyota 1939 caliber, known to many microbrand enthusiasts, remains one of the most reliable watch movements, and this is found inside this gatekeeper. Interestingly, during prototyping, Decima initially used a Chinese microrotor inside, but found its reliability to be somewhat lacking. Consequently, they switched to the Miyota caliber, showcasing Jürgen July, the founder of Decima, and his unwavering commitment to the quality of his watches. I admire this bold move because replacing a watch caliber mid production is resource intensive. But despite such, the brand pushed on and introduced more features, such as this micro adjust mechanism. There are a few great custom touches in the watch as well, such as that crown and bezel construction. Overall, it's a great new offering that starts at a very low price of $349. As many of you know, I insert other brands into my watch reviews. I do this mainly because I got watch piracy down to a science that other brands can even hijack another brand's airtime, but also to see if the brand has the barnacles to go up against the competition. Here, it's competing against one of the original integrated sports microbrands, Dumero DM01. It has a more curvaceous profile and a few more desirable features, such as a display case back and crisper hands. Both are priced under $400, but the DM01 is a long discontinued model. Honestly, I prefer the DM01 and its more uniform design language, but that's really up to your personal preference, as either or both could live in the same collection. Now, against a more recent release, the Arsenal from Venetianico, one can argue that it stands toe to toe against this prolific Venetian brand. With all of the tile textures and numerous polished facets, both could satisfy the sports watch itch. No matter how scratchy you feel, though, it will cost you twice as much to own the arsenal, and this really puts the Gatekeeper in good light for those who appreciate its value proposition. And yes, Venetianico is a much more established brand now with a more robust support system and community. But it's only fair to say too that Decima could be starting to walk the same trail that Venetianico is on. Only time will tell. One thing I can tell you though that there are some things that I would rather change on the Gatekeeper. In typical watch pirate fashion, I took it upon myself to change the design against the good judgment of the original designer. Jurgen remarked that many people may find it that the Roman numerals are a bit odd for this watch. I actually embrace it and I think it's a nice touch for the piece. However, I do think that the markers could have used a little bit more breathing room against the case wall. So I tried to isolate all of the markers from the image that I took of the Gatekeeper. Then I tried to recreate that lovely guilloche underneath by copying the pattern right beside the marker. This way, I can have the nearest lighting effect for the rest of the pattern. And finally, I tweaked the marker size as well as reducing the size of the logo. And there we go. The change in size is very minimal, but the space at the perimeter gave it a bit of space to exhale. Note too that this is a prototype of the Gatekeeper, and the brand has since changed the 12 o'clock marker and replaced the branding design. In the unwrapping video, we have a few expected remarks. Robert Littlehawk said it looks reasonably good, but wonders about the loom. I imagine Jair finger wagging about sports watches that have no loom. William Rizzo thought that it's perfect, except for the Roman numerals, as expected. And finally, Dunder Hay reprimands the brand by not protecting the watch. Do forgive him, for he knows not the watch was a used prototype, but he redeems himself from walking the plank by praising the watch for not using a butterfly clasp. The sharks shall be fed some other time. Upon closer examination, this watch exhibits numerous captivating features, particularly its case. The bezel sides feature a finely sculpted and polished facet that accentuates the cushion case, creating a seamless transition from the round dial to the bracelet's geometric shapes. This combination of straight cuts and articulate details is aesthetically pleasing. Even the middle links incorporate chamfering, adding a touch of refinement. This is then broken up by that imposing clasp that has the Decima branding prominently etched on the surface. The back of the watch has a decently large display that's framed by all of this mirror polishing. It's a great mix of contrast for all the rear-end connoisseurs. Flipping over on the dial, this is the real highlight of the Gatekeeper. Guilloche is experiencing a resurgence in popularity, and this offers an incredibly affordable way to own one. This pattern features a collection of rings with an increasing diameter. It then incorporates an alternating checkered pattern that starts from the center going out to the perimeter. Each checkered block is actually a wave sculpture that slides light across the surface, revealing its pattern on certain light angles. It's very defined for the eye to perceive, yet shallow enough for printed ink to cover. As much as I would love to have the branding to be an applied element, I really can't complain too much for a watch that costs under $400. And this is where we are at now. We can enjoy both an intricate dial and a multi-finish watch exterior. Yes, this is nothing new, nothing your typical watch pirate ship would readily tell you, along with the hundreds of examples found in AliExpress ready for them to cite. But it was never just about watch design, it's also about how the brand presents itself to you. We had this discussion recently about how to differentiate ourselves against other competing watches. And one of the things that is unique to every brand is its journey towards production and the inspiration behind them. And Decima seems to have it down in resilience and persistence. They've been around before, and at one point, the gods may have seemingly cut its life short. A cruel irony considering the brand's named after a Roman god who measures one's lifespan. But Decima persists, and now it's here seemingly defying its god-imposed fate. Most of us may not care about all that backstory, but it ultimately reflects on the product and how it matured towards entering the market. Yes, it's another sports watch. This one happens to be a bit thinner, a little curvier, and has a colorful guilloche dial. I'm sure there's a few watch pirates out there that would be willing to buy it and thanking Decima that it's available to own rather than not at all. That is the Decima Gatekeeper. I don't know what they're trying to gatekeep here, but of course, they sent me all the product info in that sheet. I didn't really read it as of yet, but by the time that I made this video, I would have read that. Okay, so give me a break. But here, I could see readily there's so many endearing things that could make it a very desirable watch. You could see the bracelet design, this kind of like Laurent Ferrier case shape, and the bezel is very lovely. I like how it fuses together the curves and the angles effortlessly, very seamlessly. I love that, and also the thinness of the case. I also adore that. But the dial, they could have done a little bit more, maybe a little smaller, a little bit more space in between the dial wall and the numerals there and the indexes, and also the Decima branding could have moved a little bit lower and make it a little bit smaller. That could have been a nicer adjustment too. But hey, it's a really great design. I love that guilloche. That guilloche pattern is a clear winner there. So, what do you guys think? Is the Decima Gatekeeper gatekeeping you from and your wallet from buying one of these? Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. That's the Decima Gatekeeper. Decima or Decima? Decima. Maybe it's a Decima because it's decimal point. Oh, I just now realized that. Decima.